welcome back to part 2 of Geometric Sequences 8-3. We are on page 428, and we're just going to write rules based on a little bit of information, unlike when they gave us an entire sequence or series. Okay, so page 428, copy down number 5. They tell us that the sixth term is negative 96, and the common ratio is negative 2. Alright, so this is all the information that we have. The sixth term is negative 96, the common ratio is negative 2. We have to remember we're going to need to come up with a rule, which means we're going to need to use this formula, a sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. Okay? A sub n equals the first term, the next term equals the first term times the common ratio to the term you're on, take away 1. Let's see if we can plug in some information. So I know that a sub 6 is negative 96. I definitely don't know what a sub 1 is. I do know that my common ratio is negative 2, and I know that this is the sixth term, so the term I'm on is 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. Okay, do you see that? This is 6, so 6 minus 1 is 5 up here, because the sixth term is negative 96. I'm going to make sure I hold this up so you have some time to process it. Okay, so now we got to solve. It looks like we're solving for a sub 1, and this isn't as tricky as it looks. A sub 1's our variable, and negative 2 to the fifth power is negative 32, and that's equal to negative 96. So to get a sub 1 by itself, I'll divide by negative 32, and I get 3. A sub 1 is equal to 3. Alright, so now I know a sub 1, I know my common ratio, and actually I can just make my rule right now. So number 5, I found out that a sub 1 is 3, and I know that the common ratio is negative 2 from the book. So the rule is that the next number is equal to the first term times the common ratio to the term you're on, take away 1, and here is my rule. Alright, so to recap, we did a lot of work, but it wasn't too bad. We broke apart this information to plug it into the rule, knowing that the sixth term is negative 96. So negative 96 is the term I'm on. It's the sixth term, so the exponent is always 1 less than that, so that's 5. The common ratio goes in for r, making sure I use parentheses. And a sub 1 is my variable, so I can do the math. Negative 2 to the fifth power is negative 32. It's being multiplied, which means division undoes it, and 3 is my first term. So when I know my first term and I know my common ratio, I have a rule. As far as graphing goes, I'll let you graph, but we can do a t-chart together. So it says to graph the first 6 terms of the sequence. So the n will be our x-axis, and a sub n will be our y-axis. The first term is 3. And we know the sixth term is negative 96. So, well, I could start plugging it in, but 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12. Positive 12 times negative 2 is negative 24. Negative 24 times negative 2 is positive 48. And it works out. 48 times negative 2 is negative 96. So go ahead and graph this. I think you can tell it's kind of going to be all over the point. Remember, we're not trying to connect the dots here. All right? Okay, we're going to do one more type, and then we're going to do some more practice from page 430 together. Okay, so copy down number 6 while I copy it down. And you might have gotten a head start, but I actually don't really like the way the book does it. And there is a shortcut that I think you're going to want to use. Okay, so number 6 tells us that the second term is 12 and the fourth term is 3. So what I need you to do right now, technical difficulties. What I need you to do right now, I need you to box the big numbers, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to take so the fourth term is 3, and the second term is 12. We're going to take the big numbers, and we're going to divide them. So the rightmost number, think about it. We don't know the first term, we know the second term, we don't know the third term, we know the fourth term. 3 is on the right. 3 over 12 is 1 over 4. So once we divided the numbers, make sure you write a note. The first step is to divide the rightmost number in the sequence by the leftmost number in the sequence. Rightmost goes on top, leftmost goes on bottom. Make sure you take notes on that. So we simplified it. So now that we have 1/4, that is not our common ratio. We are going to take a root. But what root are we going to take? What we're going to do is now take the ends and we're going to subtract them. 4 minus 2. That's going to be our root. So in this case, it is just the square root. So we're going to take the square root of 1/4, which is 1/2, and that is our common ratio. We are going to do another one of these just so you make sure you can do that. To recap though, to find the common ratio given two terms, you take the rightmost term, divide it by the leftmost term, simplify your fraction. So top, bottom, simplify. Then you take the rightmost n, take away the leftmost n, so 4 minus 2 is 2. That's your index, that's the little number that goes here. Since it's a square root, we don't write it. Do the math, and that is your common ratio. Alright, so now I know my common ratio, and actually I know exactly the same stuff I knew from number 5. I know one term, I know two terms, but let's just pick the second term. So I'm going to use this information and this information on my next whiteboard to make a rule. So, copying down for number 6, from the question, we know that the second term is 12. And we found out that the common ratio is 1/2. The rule is that the next term is the first term times the common ratio to the n minus 1. My next term is 12. I don't know my first term. I now know my common ratio, and n minus 1 is 1. Alright, so to bring the 1/2 to the 1 is 1/2. To get it to the other side, I'm going to multiply by 2. So a sub 1 is equal to 24. Now I know a sub 1, I know my common ratio. Let's plug it into the formula. The next term is equal to 24 times 1/2 to the n minus 1. Okay? I believe the directions still say that we need to graph the first 6 terms. To save some whiteboard space, I'm going to go ahead and make a sideways t-chart, n, a sub n. First term is 24. Second term is 12. Third term, well, 12 times 1/2 is going to be 6. My fourth term is 3, and 6 times 1/2 is 3, so I just checked my work. My fifth term is going to be 3 over 2, and my sixth term is going to be 3 over 4. Okay? That's up to you to graph. Remember, do not connect the dots. Okay? And I'm going to go turn to page 430, find us another one to do to practice. Alright, through the magic of pausing, I erased all my whiteboards and turned to page 430. So, let's do number 23, because that is like number 5 from the monitoring progress. A sub 3 is equal to 4, and the common ratio is 2. Okay? We need to write a rule, and then we need to graph the first 6 terms. Alright, so what do I know? I know my formula, which I'm writing down again so that I have it, well, I don't have it memorized, I just have it. A sub n is 4, a sub 1 is not known, the common ratio is 2, and 3 goes into n, so 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 squared is 4, and a sub 1 is my variable. If I divide by 4 on both sides, turns out that a sub 1 is 1. All right, that's kind of pretty. Plug it back into my rule. A sub n equals, well, I'm not going to write 1, I guess. So I'm still going to use parentheses out of habit, common ratio to the n minus 1. Okay, so here's my rule. Please, we're in high school. We're not going to write down a coefficient of 1, but the first term is right there. It's invisible. It's a1. And let's write the first 6 terms in a t-chart. And then you can go ahead and graph it. Okay, so remember, we're going to use n instead of x. We're going to use a sub n instead of y. The first term is 1. The second term would be 1 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and the book gave us that, so that's correct. Sorry about the glare. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. We can even check our work. 2, so if I want to know what the sixth term is, I'm going to say that a sub 6 is equal to 1, which I'm not going to write, times 2 to the 6 minus 1. Well, the 6 minus 1 is the 5th power. 2 to the 5th is 32, so we must have done something right, which is awesome to know. Okay, why don't you, real quick, try number 25 without me, and then when you're ready, you can unpause, and we're going to do a problem that's like number 6. So if you're done with number 25 and you checked your answer in the back of the book, let's move on to number 33, where they don't give us the easy information. They just tell us 2 random pieces of data. The second term is 28, and the 5th term is 1,792. What do I need to do with this piece of information? First, I need to take the rightmost and divide it by the leftmost. Okay, I'm going to need to stop and use my calculator for this because I do not know that off the top of my head. So 1792 divided by 28, that is 64. Okay, but that's not my common ratio. So 64 is right here. It's going to go underneath a radical. What am I going to put in the radical? I'm going to take the larger term, 5, take away 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. So that means I need to do the cube root of 64. That's 4, and that is my common ratio. Okay? So the rightmost term divided by the leftmost term, simplify it, put it under a radical, but for the index, take the rightmost term number, so the highest term number, 5, take away the lowest term number, 5 minus 2, that's 3. That means we're doing the cube root of 64. Cube root of 64 is 4. This is my common ratio. And now to find a rule, I need to know a sub 1. To do that, I'm going to take my lowest term, just because it's easier for me. You can take whichever term you want. And I'm going to plug it into the rule. So 28 is equal to a sub 1, which is what I'm trying to find, times the common ratio to 2 minus 1, which is 1. 4 to the 1 is 1, so let's divide by 4. And that means a sub 1 is 7. So my first term is 7, my common ratio is 4. I can make a rule. A sub n equals 7 times 4 to the n minus 1. Okay, if you need to pause here because there was some glare from the windows, go for it. Here's my rule. A sub n equals 7, which is my first term, times the common ratio to the n minus 1. Go ahead and make a t-chart, graph it, and then this was 33, so I want you to try 35 on your own, check your answer in the back of the book, and ask me questions tomorrow.